All right, so we are back. Thank you. This is the second part of our discussion on the injustice in the Virginia system. And we were already highlighting about pre-COVID. Now we're going to focus on the post-COVID and how it has affected millions of individuals coming out of the system, whether they were, and you know what, I don't want to just focus on the correctional system. I want to focus on people that were homeless. I want to focus on people that were in foster care, different situations, because this affects them as well. So they may not have gotten the medical care. They may have felt as though that their constitutional rights were violated. They may have felt as though that there was negligence involved. So I know that we are going to highlight briefly about, and I think we discussed about the human rights crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about, how you feel or what you have heard since you've been home. How, I don't know if this came to you through the Moors Temple or through just people connecting with you and letting them know what they went through, and how you are helping them as far as the legal aspect, if you don't mind touching on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of got to tie those two things that we were talking about together a little bit.
Okay.
So we can kind of lead up to that. The COVID situation, especially with the shots that we saw and how it was affecting people, even when they brought the flu shots and things like that, because it was violating informed consent. People didn't know what they were putting into their bodies. There's many different thoughts about what this was, but what was presented was, you have to do this in order to have your rights. And that's a violation of the rights laws. The rights laws say that these are inherent rights. So it really increased people's awareness of what their rights actually were and when do they actually start. Do I have to do something first to receive these rights, or are these rights that I'm supposed to have already from the start?
Right.
Do I have to take a shot? If I have to take a shot, do I have to jump a hoop? Do I have to go through a fire hoop? What are the things that I have to do in order to have my rights? And
now, excuse me, let me ask you, no documentation was provided to anyone?
as far as
like, this is legal, this is what we have to do, this is mandated, or was anything posted?
I mean, there were things that were posted, but it was things were saying that it wasn't mandated. However, if you want to go to the law library, if you want to go to your religious programs, you have to take this shot. Well, that's a mandate.
That's a mandate.
So you can they can twist the language however you want. But if you're saying, in order for me to have my rights, I have to take this shot, and you're saying that that's not a mandate, that is a mandate.
Right.
And if in order for me to have access to my rights, I have to do something first, that's a mandate.
Right.
So, and that's why I got to the deeper or the larger issue that's going on, not just with COVID, but with people. And remember, in the same period of time, that's when the George Floyd situation was taking place, and all of the the people took it to the streets because they were saying, basically, you got your knee on our neck, in every single way possible. And one of the biggest demonstrations of it, two of them at the time, was George Floyd and with the COVID situation, whether it was mass or whether it was forcing people to take shots that they didn't know, didn't understand, knew could harm them. Not saying it, but then when people started to find out more about the science about the shots, it was like, oh no, that was actually causing COVID, So
not to cut you off, but since you've been home, have you been able to research those? Okay, that's what I want to get at, because I know that you said that there's a whole book of different codes, and did you research those codes to see if how it applies?
Yeah, because you have limited access on the inside, but sometimes even the information that you actually do have a lot of information. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of hard for people to understand, because in one aspect you're blocked from information. On another hand, you have a lot of information because you can dissect. You have more time. So now it's like the merging together of those two things. Now I have the ability to just go and reach where I want more information, but I have a good foundation. But the now that we have an opportunity, now that I have an opportunity to look at the situation of COVID or social injustice protests or whatever with the passage of time and comparing what I know now to what I know then we know that we were on the right track then. And we know that that's why we had to persist and fight like we did then, because it's right. Like that's sometimes when you stand your ground on something because you know you're fighting for what is right, despite what people may feel about it. It's like, well, this is the right decision for me, and these are my rights, you know. So that's why now it's like vindication when you keep looking back at what happened back then and all the things that you suffered, because I suffered a lot. You know, we suffered a lot in the system behind COVID, and by them trying to make us do something that we didn't want to do just to see our family. You know, I didn't even get to see my mother before she passed. She passed in 2022.
Sorry.
And this, you know, and I knew her health was going down, and I wasn't even able to see her. You know what I'm saying? And I got out in 2024. So I missed her, you know, in 2 years. And just because I didn't have a vaccine. So it's like, it's like, so you block and then right after I filed that to the court, so the issue was I had to file a lawsuit basically to open up the DOC, to open up the law library, to open up visitation, to open up religious programs, to open up educational programs. And I put a lot into this lawsuit, and I wanted it to hit them in the face, you know. And when I filed it with the strongest terms. Now, other cases that were fighting COVID restrictions and churches being closed and things like that, restaurants, people were being put out of business basically behind the restrictions.
But you know how they compensated them to help them? They gave them grants or they gave them loans to help rebuild and reconstruct their businesses.
Yeah.
But your rights were violated. Whereas though you didn't have a voice until you came home. Excuse me. Until you came home.
Right. And so, and that's part of the thing is that, and think about it, I'm inside of a prison.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Allergies.
Oh, allergies, yeah. It's everybody's staring. I can see it all over. Like, I have bad allergies too. I could see it with my eyes.
Yeah.
Zoom. But so governors of states representing states and everything, their cases were being knocked down by the federal courts at the time of filing. So they have like the assessment of your case called 1915 review. When you file your case, they actually assess your case and see what rights you're asserting, if you have those rights, you have enough. What they say is, if we believe everything that you say, do you have cause for relief to be granted in your way? Like, even if we believe everything you say, should you win? And those cases filed by state attorney generals were being smacked down at the time of filing. So their cases were, you know, not lasting. As soon as it hit the clerk's office, it went to the judge, and the judge was smacking them down.
So they weren't even being reviewed the way they should have been. They
were being reviewed and dismissed under 1915 review, which is an intake review. Like the intake when you file a federal claim. Say it's under 42 U.S.C. 1983, which is a civil rights violation or Civil Rights Act, and you're asserting that my rights are being violated and the government officials are doing it, and this is how it's happening. If they can look at your claim now, many people were saying, well, the courts were in on, you know, dismissing issues with COVID because there was a lot of political pressure and things like that. So, but my case went for a year. Like, it didn't get smacked down. So after I filed my case on March 9th, March 11th of this was on March 11th of 2022, they opened the whole entire DOC. So it's like, how could, if these restrictions, now you gotta think about this, at the time that I filed this case was we just came out of so-called Delta variant, and we were going into Omicron, and they were coming into, Omicron was actually a SARS-CoV-3. It was a different, but either way, and they were about to initiate the lockdowns. We were going through this other period, a heightened period. This was Delta. So when I filed this, the uh, they signed like the head attorney generals to my case. You know what I'm saying? Like 4 of them. And so as soon as this was filed, 2 days later, DOC opened up everything.
Wow, you're kidding.
Opened up everything. The only thing that didn't get open was visitation. That didn't get open until I filed my one of my pleadings.
So someone did listen to you.
Well, they knew that what they were doing was wrong. And what I had stated, see, what they were trying to do was get me to withdraw my case because of the allegations that I was making against the DOC, violation of rights, violation of informed consent, comparisons to the Tuskegee experimentation process that they did, just everything. And so it was too much of a case.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. Do you think that it's not a ethical type of gesture to want to pursue to have legal rights changed or to have your voice heard? Because I know that a lot of incarcerated individuals or people that are not at a good standpoint in their life, they feel as though that their voice doesn't carry. They feel as though that, you know, I gotta accept what's coming to me. I gotta, you know, I can't speak about it because no one's going to do anything about it. And I know that we get together and we do petitions and we, but it can't just be your voice. Right. You need an army.
Oh, yeah, and we had that inside. So it's one aspect is to file it legally, but there's wars taking place all over the DOC in multiple ways, and inside and outside. So family members that wanted to come in, and then you had, you know, we fight many different ways. So some of it is physical, some of it is paperwork, some of it is, you know, my gift or ability is to fight legally.
Okay.
So that's just a supplement or a complement to the other.
Do you still think that you're fighting for everyone?
Yeah, because especially through the COVID situation, you could see how, and that's why the constitutional protections were there to stop infringement upon the rights by government officials, by people who were empowered with power over the people. So that was a protection from the people. Yeah, it was a protection for the people from people with power. And COVID and George Floyd were 2 examples that came at the same time to show how the knee can get put on your neck until you're dead. Now, what point do you have a right? So, being that that's the case, you know, the whole nation became more aware. You know, COVID, even though whatever the controversy is behind how it came, vaccines, whether vaccines good, bad, whatever, people were more aware of their rights. With George Floyd, people were more aware of their rights. You know, so that being the case, you know, you're dealing with inmates who have heightened awareness, where before they could have been, you know, not really aware of their rights.
Yeah,
even the
they
general
were blindsided.
Yeah.
They, you know, you opened their mindset to new ideas, and that they need to stand up for themselves and everyone else in there. So yeah,
right.
But it's not. Some people look at it as like, you know, they don't want the collaboration of all, you know, people in a group. But this was a peaceful group.
Right. Right.
This was not a violent, harsh group. They were trying to attack anyone. They were actually fighting for their rights. And there is so much going on, and that's why our podcast is so diverse. I don't care what nationality you are. I don't care what facet of life you come from. We all have a voice, and we all have, you know, shared ideas. And we should learn how to respect one another, but we also want to bring peace.
Right.
And that's all you were trying to do.
Right.
Bring peace and say, hey, look, this is not right. This is not the way that, you know, the process is supposed to work. So I need you guys to hear me and to hear others and to fix it. okay, moving forward, here we're in 2025. Do you think there's been any change?
There's been a change in the awareness of the people, and that's what's most important.
Okay.
So that makes more people stand up for their rights or be actively engaged because now they are aware.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Awareness is key. If you don't have awareness, and some things just make you aware, you know, some things that God brings to be, it just makes you aware.
Right.
So now, because there's so much awareness about people's rights being violated and limited, yeah, we do. It's easier for me to have a conversation now. It's easier for me to have a conversation with you. Whereas before all of these things happened, people would just walk by like.
Do you think that that's a bill that needs to be passed?
I think that people need to be more involved with understanding how bills are passed.
Okay.
How they have a hand in the legislative process. How they are in touch with their government, and that their government is supposed to represent their needs, and that they have to pay attention. They have to vindicate their own rights.
Okay.
They have to think about that. They can't just trust that over to somebody. That's what will lead to a COVID-19 situation where you're having people tell you what to do instead of serving your interests or serving your needs.
Right.
So in that it's hard to explain sometimes in a prison where people were so removed from the knowledge of the legislative process or involvement with local government, state government, federal government. They're not aware. They live a life just over there with the friends and family until the officials show up and they're telling them what to do. Then they're complaining. It's like, yeah, but that means you have to be involved in the developmental stages.
Right.
When people are coming up with policies and coming up with laws and coming up with excuses and coming up with qualified immunity and coming up with these things, you have to be involved there, because otherwise you're going to be a victim of the law, or you're going to be a victim of the people with the power.
Yeah.
So
that's like well, you can tell me if my analogy is wrong. That's like you just showing up to vote, and you don't know why you're voting for this person. You're just voting for them because they have the popularity votes or what.
Yeah.
I mean, you should really do your homework, research, and find out, okay, what are they bringing to the table? What are they asking for? Is this going to benefit me in the future? Is this going to benefit my family in the future? Is this going to benefit loved ones that I have that are displaced somewhere?
Yeah, and to learn not only just to vote, but to be actively engaged with the person that you voted for after you voted them into office, because they're supposed to serve your needs.
They're supposed to serve you. They have an office. You can go to their office and voice your concern, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So how many people do that?
Right. And that's what this whole thing is about. When people realize that, oh, it's because I was sitting over there and they were over there making the laws. And next thing you know, they're coming over here with their laws, and I wasn't involved. So that means I have to get involved.
You have to get involved.
Right.
And I know that my heart goes out to the family and loved ones of the two that where their lives were taken so short in DC. And they were doing a peaceful event. So, and just like we're doing a peaceful event. I don't know how come that amendment clause about freedom of speech it's not taken the way that it should be. I think it's swept underneath the rug, and a lot of people are saying, okay, well, I don't care what you say, you're not right. But how are you saying that I'm not right? I'm not debating anything that you're saying, just like you're not debating what I'm saying. But we have to come to a common consensus that, how is this going to affect everyone in the long run? What can we do to make it better? Everyone has a valued opinion. And I think that we take that too literally, whereas though we don't value someone else's whatever. You have to open your mind and you have to say, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe she's right. Maybe I need to think a little bit deeper about this. Maybe I need to think outside, the realm of, how this can be a long time effect, instead of just looking at the situation right then and there and trying to come up with a solution. It ain't gonna work like that all the time.
Right.
So how have, okay, I know you're saying that you have seen some change, but how can we continue to see that change? What can we do as a community, as a nation, to help continue to see the change? Because Virginia ain't the only prison system. Okay? No. You got prisons all over. Right. Alaska, California, Texas, Florida, all over. So how can we, because it's got to transition down. As I said, they're not voicing their concerns, or maybe I don't know, because I haven't heard about it. Right.
Well, part of it is we have to have the right conversations, and we have to bring up the right things, even when we're talking to our loved ones and stuff on the phone. Sometimes we're just so happy to connect, but we're not really having substantial conversations when we're talking to them, as far as what's going on and what do they need and what are their rights, or being informed, and what will they need when they come out. So a lot of that is just kind of changing the mindset a little bit, just from like a relaxed mindset to a more aware and involved mindset. And if we do that, like even with you and you're doing this podcast, that's very important, because you could be doing a podcast about anything, but you're doing a podcast to raise awareness.
And we have to stick together about that. And like I just said, it doesn't matter whether you're in the prison system. It doesn't matter whether you're in foster care. It affects everybody in certain situations. You could be a studious employee, and all of a sudden they let you go from your job. Okay, and never pay attention to politics or resources in the community. You never thought that you would have to need social services for to help with your electric bill, your utility bills. Never thought you would need social service to help you to probably get food stamps or get some type of supplemental income to help you until you can find another job. Never thought you would have to go to unemployment. So we are ignorant. We make our own selves ignorant of the awareness that's out here.
Right.
Because you know why? Because we say, oh, it ain't gonna happen to me.
Right. Same thing with COVID. There's no way that you could think that something that they were talking about in China could reach all the way into the DOC.
But it did.
It did. And there was the closing.
Look at the wildfire that happened in Canada.
Yeah. Okay. And then you could see the smoke here.
You could see the smoke here. Yeah. But look how far Canada is from here.
Yeah.
But you can see it. So it is airborne. It travels.
And that's the thing, is making yourself aware of things when you think there's no way that this is going to affect me. It does affect you. And that's what even, a lot of people in society were becoming, even when you look at the internet now, and there's a lot of people who are challenging the police or challenging state officials as far as their rights, or do I have to roll the window down, or what do I have to do at this traffic stop? Because people are now, they're like, what do we have to do?
What do we have to do?
Because I didn't think that this would affect me, but now I'm seeing that it's actually affecting everyone. It's not just the so-called blacks. It's not just the so-called Hispanics. It's everybody.
It's everybody.
Yeah, so maybe we all need to be a little bit more aware.
Cognizant of what,
Yeah, and then when they look back at the cases and they're seeing the best arguments that they could make, they're seeing that these were cases that were filed from the prisons.
Yes.
These are cases that were filed in the projects dealing with police and the police abuse. And then now this case is being used by someone in the suburbs that thought that this would never happen to them. But now you got your head slammed on the concrete. Now someone's telling you can't have your rights. And you're looking into COVID cases from the prison. So that's why it's so important to fight where you're at.
You gotta fight.
Because everyone is connected. At some point in time, they're gonna use that example for their situation to alleviate theirs. So that's
You're right. Boy. I know we got a broken system. There is one more thing I want to talk about, because this ties into something that you and I talked about the probation and parole. This has to do with the legal system. It has to do with the unjust, the not having a voice, and I'm sorry, but they only see you when you come out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see you at the time that you're in there. They're going by reports that were obtained from the counselors, correct?
Yeah.
And that's how they determine, okay, where we want you at, how long you're going to be on probation or parole, this and that, based on those reports. Not all those reports are factual.
Right.
I don't know this per se because I'm not in the system,
mm-hmm.
but I'm going by the voices of others
mm-hmm.
that don't believe everything that's documented.
Right.
And I know that you're not going to trust me because I'm coming out, but you know what? That's being judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already served my time for what I was sentenced to, so I don't need to be sentenced again when I come out.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel as though that we need to have a different outlook on probation and parole, because so many people are coming out and thinking they're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the last time that you and I have spoke, I think you told me they gave you $35 and
mm-hmm.
sent you on your way and gave you a bus pass. That was it.
Yeah, they gave me the credit card, which had $1,000 that was saved up, but they just basically dropped me off in the parking lot. However, probation and parole, all of these things are like everything with the DOC or
mm-hmm.
Anything that's happening to people personally. It's kind of like a life behind a wall that nobody actually sees.
Right.
But it exists.
It exists.
So you don't even know how many people walking around us right now are on probation or parole.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We might think that everyone, but people are in these different levels of incarceration, and that's what those things are. Probation
mm-hmm.
and parole is just a different level of incarceration. There's a level that says you have to be in the prison, and there's a level that says you can walk around out in the
mm-hmm.
in society, but you're pretty much in prison.
You're prison, yeah.
Because you're just an inmate without a jail uniform.
Yeah.
So basically, and then being that you're on a subsystem. You're not and you got to recognize and Trump talks about this. They're talking about these different statuses. That's what the Dred Scott case was about. These different statuses of citizenship, and saying that everybody was not the same. Even though there are people walking around, we see them as the same, but in the law, it's not treating people the same.
Treated the same.
So when you have a group of people that are on, say, probation or parole, and they are being regulated by a subsystem, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like a subjudicial system. So everyone else goes and say that's the front door of the court. They go in there, but you go in the back door of the court in a basement, and that's where your hearing is being held. And the evidence is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Mm-hmm. It's just reasonable cause.
Reasonable cause.
So now you're in a subsystem. It's almost like, okay, like you have immigration system. Immigration Naturalization Service. They have their own courts. So this is why we deal with immigrants, people who are, we say, illegal immigrants. Do you go to the regular court? No, you go to this other court.
You go to another court.
So same thing with the probation and parole.
So we're divided.
Yeah, there's so many systems that it's like, do you know which system you fall under, despite the fact that we're all walking around? And someone's keeping track, because we could be sitting right here and a van could pull up and they'll run and chase one guy down and put a hood over his head and put him in the van and be like, what happened? Oh, he was an illegal immigrant. But he was walking around with us. We had fun with him. He was a good guy. Yeah. But we saw him differently according to the law, and he has these limited rights. And you could just be picking people off out of society the whole time like that, unless you understand where you are. So with probation and parole, they have basically like their own police system, court system, where it can be abused so bad that it's like it's not regulated. It's the lowest regulation that you could imagine, to take a person from free society back into a prison. You can take a person very easily in a probation and parole violation on the most limited amount of information.
That's what I want to ask you. We were talking about the COVID. We were talking about medical conditions. We're talking about the pre and the post. When someone comes out, it's hard for them to really get into the health system to start getting treatment that they need to help them for their medical conditions. this can affect their probation or parole, because sometimes it affects your mental, and you're not aware of the date, the time that you're supposed to get somewhere. But you're trying to get medical attention. You're trying, and that's your focus right now, because you're feeling sick. You're not feeling your normal. But then, like you said, they have a system. Oh, well, you violated. You didn't show up. Well, you know what? I'm at the doctor's office. I'm trying to, get stuff straight. I'm finding I got to go have surgery and everything. But you violated.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, how did I violate? And you're put back into the system and held for 3-4 days before anyone talks to you and says, this is what you violated. Why is that?
I mean, it's just part of another part of a system. It's just another.
But we need to fix that, don't you think?
Well, yeah. Okay, but let's just take it like this. There's some, if you ever watch stories of people that say they went back to Africa, right? They say, as soon as I got off the plane in Africa and walked around, it felt like a weight was lifted off me.
Yeah.
Like I was able to breathe. I was able to think. And it's like they were like trying to examine this process and say, why did they feel like that? They said, because all of the systems that I was under, whatever it was, if it's probation, the paroles, the court, the racisms, the medical system, the rent, the traffic systems, whatever, it's not there. It's not there like it is here.
Right.
And so just the knowledge of that, like when you're talking about the mental health of that whole thing, or how it could affect you, having to keep track of all of those things, or you will be incarcerated, or you will be taken down, is like you really can't have the words, I guess, unless you compared and contrast true freedom of mind, freedom of thought, freedom of movement, actual rights, actual access to rights, and then compare it to a limited system where everything is, you're thinking it's freedom, but it's not actually freedom. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of regulation, or it's a lot of danger, it's a lot of risk, it's a lot of, if I don't do this, these 25 negative things will happen to me, and it will take me 25 years to get out of it. So credit, and like when you coming from, these different types of lives, if you sit there and compare, look at footage of people in Jamaica or Guyana or Mali or wherever these people are, wherever the other people are, and they're saying, yeah, over here we live like this, and people that visit from this area go over there and they say, yeah, I can actually feel what was lifted off of me now.
It's a different mindset, and it's a feeling of peace.
Right.
I have peace.
Yeah.
I know we're going to come back to a lot of things, but I want to tie everything together now. We already know it's a negligence in the system. And I know that we are not just fighting as an individual. I know we're fighting as a nation. I want to continue to fight because this is personal to me because of my sons. So I continue to fight. But we need to, like you said, the individuals you elect in office, you really need to find out, do your homework, do your research, and to find out more about them and how you can either support them or how they can support you.
Yeah, or make your own.
You got to be proactive in it, especially when you're trying to make a difference, right?
Right.
And I've known from the political side rather, that it takes a year to 2 years before you can change a document, before you can implement a new change. Whereas though, when you're in the prison system, they change just like that. They'll tell you something on Monday, and by Friday they be done change the whole daggone process. But when you're in the real world, legislator, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen because you have to go through so many, like you said, so many systems, so many channels, so many levels
Mm-hmm.
before it gets approved.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has to be implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So you're fighting for your rights, and you could be fighting for 5 years, you can be fighting for 10 years before you make a change.
Mm-hmm. Right. And part of that is just I think it's if everybody is thinking in that way to make changes, then changes will happen.
Changes will happen.
That's
right.
Because everybody actually has a hand in it. So we can't. Part of our problem is that I think we trust it over to people to make the change for us, and then we don't really do anything to make the change.
Right.
And it's like there's a lot of. I think sometimes people might feel that there's not a lot of reward in making change. So we have to figure out ways to make it rewarding for us to make change and to involve other people in making change. I do like the idea, and there are a lot of great people. I think that people generally are good and good natured.
They're good, yes.
And they have a they want what's good for other people, but we don't utilize ourselves in the best way all the time to obtain what's good, and we trust it over to a system, and then we neglect it, and then we might put people in charge of it that's let's say the most ambitious for that position, and then might not be the right person for it. And next thing you know, that system is running backwards against our interests.
Right.
So
that's the delay. That's where the delays come in at.
And that's the thing, is just to increase our level of involvement in our reward system, if that's what it is.
Yeah.
To see how maybe we can be personally fulfilled or rewarded when we're helping and doing good. Because there's a lot of people that I think actually want to do good. Most people just aren't aware. And that's why some of these things, they create that secrecy that is in government or in these institutions that builds these walls. And that's why people were having to test what Freedom of Information Acts and things like that say we want access to know what is going on in here, because see, it doesn't seem right, because the people that's coming out are moving like this, and they should be moving straight, but they're moving like zigzag. So what is going on? And then they start building up these walls of we can't tell you what's going on, we can't show you. And then that's when you have the people have to actually tear down those walls. That's what Freedom of Information Act is. That's why people were, I'm not going to go into the storming of the Capitol thing, but I'm going to say that's why people were trying to tear down the walls of these institutions and be like, what is going on back there? And you just need to find out, just need to be involved.
Can I say something? And this is in closing, because we're running out of time for our episode today, is that I would really like what we have started and others have united with us to continue. But not only that, instead of building prisons to put people behind bars and have them feel handicapped, I'm going to say handicapped, have a structure where so people can come to gain knowledge, educate them on ethical issues in life. And I think that if we change their mindset and give them that awareness, you won't have to put them in prison, because they'll be so damn scared and terrified of everything that's going to have to go on, the repercussion. They'll be like, I ain't going there. Let me get on a straight and narrow. We used to have the scare tactics. We used to have the boot camps and things like that to put the kids in and everything, to give them that insight of, this is why you don't want to go down that path. We took away that. We need to bring it back. Because I think if you do that, if you reconstructure the way the government is going, and you stop trying to build prisons, stop trying to look at it like, okay, well, in the future, we're going to have 50,000 more people that are going to be locked up. Stop looking at it like that. Start building a safe haven place for them to come to and talk about what issues that they're having, so they are not in a situation where they're going to go out there and do something unethical that winds them in the system.
And some of that, people, they go for what is more beneficial, financially beneficial. So if prisons pay and building prisons pays, then that's what people will do. But if you make the other things pay, then that's what people will do.
Building a highway pays.
Right.
Build a bridge to success. Build a bridge that will bring people together, to work together,
right.
to see a common that I'm doing something right. I'm doing something to help my community. I'm doing something that'll strengthen my children in the future, my family. You know, when you put them in prison, you're tearing the family apart.
Exactly. So,
you're destroying that bond. You're destroying, especially if it's a man, you're taking that man who is the head of the household out.
Right.
And the hardship starts to fall on the woman. It starts to fall on the mom. It starts to fall on the sisters.
So that's the importance, is to demonstrate the benefit in another way,
right,
than the prisons. So, and a lot of these things, like we say before, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Some of these things that we're looking for, they already exist. It's our job to direct the people to those institutions, or to those places where we're saying this positive information is available, this beneficial, socially beneficial entity exists. And instead of allowing people just to wander into the streets, like that's so, like in the temple, we take a lot of self accountability. Instead of like, somebody did this to me type thing, which is a dangerous type of mindset to be in, because you can never come out, you can never fix your own problem if you're only thinking that it's happening by somebody else. It's like, if we know that we are strong and powerful people, if I know that you're a strong and powerful woman, you know I'm a strong and powerful man, then I can't think that this other person has the ability to just overpower me. So it's something that I'm not doing. So, and that's what we're trying to do, is, you know, bring the account back to us and say, okay, look, if I know this guy right here and he's coming out of prison, and I know he has these options available, and one of them is to go and get involved in a whole bunch of nonsense. Now, am I going to just stand back and let the guy get into a bunch of nonsense, or am I going to do something to direct him to the right place? Because I'm sitting in the middle of a little town thing, and I'm like, well, you can sell drugs, I guess, if you go behind that building and ignore all of this that's going on right here. But if you don't want to do that, you can go into that building, you go to that building, you go there, you go there, you go there, you go there. You can get a job there, you can learn what they're talking about, you know, you can have conversations with these people. Like, there's so many different options. But so we have to be way more involved, instead of thinking that somebody is just doing it to us. It's like, no, like, we have to be involved. We have to be involved with the prison. We have to be involved with, when they're coming out, this is where you can go. Here are your options.
Here are your, and
You know what I'm saying?
And you know what? To end on this note, knowledge is power, but wisdom is acquired. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any last remarks before we close out?
No,
you know, you want to tell them what you're doing as far as the Moors?
No, but right now we're just
you're still they're still able to connect with you, right?
Yeah, and it's not just about the Moors. It's about, you know, the Moors. Information is really about everybody, and
it's everybody, but people still can connect with you.
They can connect, and what we're dealing with nonprofits, and we're dealing with LLC to try to help people coming out of the prison. Things that I'm aware of, and I know how to help. So,
but I know, like you said, your passion is illegal.
That's right.
That's right. All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're signing out, and I'm going to take advantage of Virginia now. Have a good one.